In partnership with cleveland.com, this is Capital Letter. The virus has been in Ohio earlier than previously thought. That is according to new data released by the state health department. Initially, the first coronavirus cases in Ohio were diagnosed back in March. Cleveland.com political reporter Seth Richardson joins me now to talk about this new revelation and what it means for the state's efforts to fight the virus and get the economy moving again. Seth, Dr. Acton now says there were 6 cases in 5 different counties in Ohio going back to January. How has that been determined?
Well, basically, they determined it through antibody testing, which has kind of been the buzzword as of late, right? But it is striking to hear that the virus was in Ohio as soon as January 7th, right? You have 5 counties that all had January cases. Miami, Montgomery, Richland, Summit, and Warren counties all had them. We didn't really have the first confirmed case in the state as far as when this kind of all started in the onset until March.
Given the exponential nature of the virus, this does raise a whole lot of questions. But the governor and Dr. Acton have said from the outset that many people may contract COVID-19 without developing symptoms. Does knowing the virus was here earlier than previously thought raise any issues about the state's response to the pandemic?
Well, it's certainly another data point that they're going to have to consider, right? Because in theory, if the virus was here earlier, that means it may have spread a little quicker, meaning more people might have the antibodies, which would be good news for the reopening. It means more people wouldn't be likely to, catch or recatch it, rather. But again, it's just such an unknown at this point. It could also mean that, hey, maybe more people succumb to this disease earlier on because we weren't looking for it. That's all going to have to be part of the state and local health boards' investigations as they kind of try to track this thing backwards.
The state is randomly selecting 1,200 people for voluntary antibody testing, giving the state a better look at how this virus is being spread. But it also raises some of the shortcomings of reopening the state economy when we still know so little about the virus. What are the political and public safety waters the governor and Dr. Acton have to navigate under those circumstances?
Well, the political waters are kind of informed by the public safety waters, right? Because on the one hand, you have, people who, are wanting to get back to work, but there is always that inherent risk of danger that comes with the disease, right? As more people go out and more people interact, there is likely going to be more transmission of the disease. It's just kind of, simple math. If people are in closer contact and interacting with each other, it's more likely to spread. And that leads to the kind of political conundrums, right? Because you're basically having to weigh what sort of risk is okay for the public to reopen the economy, to get bars and restaurants going, to get manufacturing going. And then on the other side, you have this contingency of, I don't necessarily want to call them deniers, but certainly, people who are against all of the orders and saying, no, we're not going to wear masks. It does create this like hodgepodge and this hot pot of, a political tension that, comes from people having been, locked, not necessarily locked in their houses, but staying home for the past 2.5 months.
The governor has received a lot of praise for his response to the virus. Does this new timeline change the narrative for him at all?
I hate the phrase "it remains to be seen," but it honestly does remain to be seen, right? If cases of the virus go up and deaths start going up, I imagine that, Governor DeWine's probably going to get some flack for this because, as he said, it's a gamble. Well, sometimes when you gamble, you lose, right? So if you lose that gamble, yeah, it could completely tarnish, the praise that he's gotten for this. On the other hand, if Ohio is able to, both mitigate the disease and steer its way from, the economic downturn that we're currently in, I imagine that the praise will probably be heaped on him even more.
Seth Richardson. Seth, thank you.
Thank you.
See tomorrow's headlines and analysis today by subscribing to Capital Letter. Just go to cleveland.com/Capital Letter.